when you hold onto the thread of gratitude, which is also a big part of the book, we can hold onto that thread of gratitude for everything that you experience through all of the challenges and everything, just holding on, right, to the thread of like, can I see the light in this? Even in this, can this support me in my evolution, in my growth, in my expansion? If you can hold on to the thread of gratitude, it can really support you through all of life.
And I feel like people think, oh, like gratitude is like, it's like spiritual bypassing and stuff. But it's like, it's actually not only ancient, it's also scientific.
Yeah, exactly. It is the staple of every Indigenous culture. Gratitude is essential in all cultures. It's being in reciprocity for all things. It's being in reverence for life, allowing you to honor life, to honor this experience that we have. And it's also like the highest vibration. It's a giving and receiving of love. It's like the highest state and frequency that you can be in when you're in gratitude.
Trust flows, surrender, let go. Trust flows, surrender, let go. Trust flows, surrender, let go. I'm the one I've been waiting for.
Welcome back to the High Self Podcast. My name is Sahara Rose, and on this podcast, I love to take spiritual concepts and make them grounded, relatable, fun, accessible, so they can actually serve your needs. Probably the biggest part of my spiritual, which is really the healing journey, was connecting to my ancestors, seeing my lineage, the intergenerational patterns, both the shadows and the wounding, as well as the light. And I just came back from spending a few weeks in the Sacred Valley of Peru, hence you can see the gorgeous outfit. And it was so life-changing, especially sitting with the medicine of Wachuma San Pedro, which really was deep family constellations work. And I've been on this journey for over a decade now, but it really just was a reminder to me that the most important work that we can do in our lifetimes is to look at the unfinished business of our ancestors. What were the things that they died not having completed? What were their wishes? What were their dreams? And how are we the living embodiment of that? So for those of you who are new to me, my family escaped from war in Iran. During the Iran-Iraq War in 1980, over 1 million Iranians were killed. And my family escaped by foot. Members of my family were caught and put into prisons where they were imprisoned and tortured for over a year. And each member of my family had to apply for asylum and find their way over to first Europe and then the United States and start from scratch, where they did not know the language, the culture, did not have any money with them, and start from the bottom. My grandfather became a convenience store owner. Every member of my family had their own journey. My aunt was placed in the center of the Bronx, New York. That's where they lived, and, experienced a lot of violence and, drugs and lots of things of coming into a new culture with a lot of trauma and PTSD where it was not addressed. And my parents met in the United States and within 2 months got engaged and very quickly had me. So I was born, the day I was born, there was actually another war that was happening. So I was born into war. And war is a really big part of my lineage and my story. And especially with the war happening right now, one of the wars happening right now in the Middle East, we can see the way that this impacts not just the children, but their children and intergenerationally. And doing a lot of the deep inner healing work has caused me to see the way that war consciousness found its way into our personal consciousness, into our family's consciousness, into the ways that we see ourselves and ways that we then recreate, these wars with others. So that has been a really big part of my healing journey. And I believe it's essential and in fact impossible to skip this step. And it's not even a step, it's a lifelong journey. And the beauty too is I believe our souls chose our parents and and our parents chose theirs. And the wisdom of each of our grandparents lives within us. So getting to know their stories and seeing the ways that, like for example, my father's father was this incredible businessman in Iran, and I got his mind. But then my other grandfather, he was a poet and a mystic who was in the Iranian military and decided to become a pacifist. I got his soul. And one of my grandmothers on my dad's side, she was like a hoot. She was funny. She was over the top. She would crack dirty jokes. She didn't care. And I got her free spirit. And then my other grandmother, she was so loving and nurturing, and she loved psychology and food. And I got that, which became my career. So we received the gifts from each member of our lineage as well, which is an equal part of doing the deep inner healing work. So I'm so excited to bring on my personal best friend here on the podcast. Rosie's my best friend and Christine's my best friend. So yes, I have two best friends. I have a lot of best friends, but they're like my real best friends. And we've been besties for like 8 years now. And it has been incredible watching her on her healing journey. We got together because she reached out to me on Instagram for a cup of ceremonial cacao. And how could I have resisted? And, and our journey has been woven with so much fun and laughter and play. And when we're together, we really are inner children, but then we'll also go into these great depths. And she has such a profound and amazing story that's literally out of a movie, the way that the story continues to evolve. And my hope and intention is for it to see that whatever happened in your ancestral lineage, whatever happened with your parents is not something to be ashamed about. And it's not something that you have to feel like you need to hide or is a bad reflection of you, even if it was a mistake, even if it was hurtful. But actually, we are standing upon our ancestors' shoulders. And I know her story will really inspire you to restore right relations within your family. And before we drop into this episode, be sure to hit subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. That is the best way to stay up to date on the latest episodes. We've got this in video format, so if you're just hearing my voice, be sure to also watch our fabulous outfits on video as well on Spotify, YouTube, or the Apple Store. This is the best way to stay in the flow with future conversations and also allows the podcast to reach more people. So hit subscribe so I can keep vibing with you on all future episodes. Now let's get into this one. So without further ado, let's welcome Christine Olivia Hernandez to the Highest Self podcast.
Thank you, sis. I'm so happy to be here.
Wow, such full circle from last time you were here a few years ago, speaking about cacao, and now here with your new book, Remember Your Roots, which is so impactful. We just, because Christine's been living with me. So we just got it here a few days ago, and it's so beautiful. So I would just love to get started with your story. Getting started with your childhood and your experience as a child and your relationship with your parents.
Yeah, let's just dive right in, shall we?
Yes.
So my mother was a first-generation Mexican-American. My father had migrated from Guatemala. He came here to the States when he was 5 years old, and he actually was molested upon coming over here. He left during the Civil War, by the way, in Guatemala when there was a Mayan genocide, and incurred a lot of trauma and a lot of hardships. My father's mother was really poor and raised him as a single parent. And my mother ended up raising me as a single parent. My parents had me really young. They were in high school, had me as teenagers. And after they had me, my father had gotten into drugs, into gangs, and he wasn't there for the birth either. But either way, I came into this world an incredibly magical being, and I had a really beautiful, vivid imagination that really supported me and still continues to support me in my life. And through the human experience, I really went into forgetfulness and forgetting who I was. And I really didn't even have a strong foundation of knowing who I was to begin with, right? Like I didn't know anything about my Indigenous roots or anything at all about my Guatemalan roots at all, because my father wasn't around. So he left when I was 3 fully, came back when I was 13, in and out of my life till I was 18. And then a month before I got into contact with a family member, he took his life, right? It was the same month that I turned 22, actually, that he took his life, right? So already being, disconnected and going through a lot of trauma myself through my experience, the human experience, and through being raised by a mother who also was like, she was into gangs, she was into gangsters, she was into the cholos type, right? So I was around a lot of toxicity. My stepfather was in and out of prison as well. And beautiful man, huge heart, but, an addict and had a lot of things come up. So I've seen a lot. I would visit him in prison a lot as well. And after my father then took his life and I felt like I lost the ability to ever connect with that part of myself, I was incredibly traumatized through that and went into like deep numbing, even deeper disconnect, right? So I was into, going out. I would drink a lot. I would eat a lot, anything to kind of numb my feelings and cope with my big feelings, really, and my trauma. And then it wasn't until I was like in the worst of my relationships with an ex-partner, and it was so toxic. And I got to this point where I was like, this is like multiple times being on my knees, having one of those bathroom floor moments where you're just crying and you're like, why do I keep, why am I here again? Why am I here again? And all I knew at that point is that last time being there, I was like, this is it. I don't know what I want, but I don't want this. And I'm going to change my life. And I did. And I dove into self-help books. I dove into yoga, which yoga led me to Cacao, which being introduced to Cacao during yoga teacher training, it was mine Cacao from Guatemala. That changed my life forever, right? I was like instantly connected to my heart, instantly connected to my ancestors, to my lineage. And then that brought me onto this path of remembering. Yeah.
If you've had a dark night of the soul, you know what I mean? Those on your knees moments, I want you to know your sexiest days are yet to come. I can't wait. This is for you.
If you've recently gone through a dark night of the soul, those on your knees moments where it feels like life is over, well, I have made the ultimate anthem for you, and it is called Sexy Dark Night of the Soul. So I wrote this song, I produced the beat, and I wrapped it all in one flow based on the healing work I did after my divorce. You're actually hearing the song right now in the background. And it's a reminder to you that those moments where you feel like life is over, your new life is just beginning. This is the anthem for you, turning your pain into your purpose and not being afraid of your shadows, but realizing they make you even sexier. So I am so excited to share this song and music video for you. The video is me literally riding a motorcycle, embodying my full Kalima, liberated, feminine, dark goddess energy, and I can't wait to share it with you. So head over to the show notes. You can watch the video on YouTube. Please leave a comment on YouTube. That really, really helps it reach more people so we can have more high conscious music with great lyrics and dope beats circling the planet. You can also check it out on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to music, and find those links in the show notes. I can't wait to see you in your sexy dark night of the soul.
Had a ball, I got 99 problems and I connected them all. What a call, I got 99 problems, but you'll never see me fall. That is all.
So one thing that gets me going is a love story. I love to just hear about people falling in love, whether, it was a slow burn over a long period of time, friends that just became something a little bit more with little glance, or maybe it was just like a love at first sight, freaking merman just like came out of the ocean with his trident ready to ravish you. I mean, I'm here for it all. Because your girl is single, So I love Dipsy because they have hundreds of short, spicy, and romantic audio stories. They bring scenarios to life with immersive soundscapes and realistic characters. But also, if you're into like fantasies and fairies and all that, they got that too. New content is released every week, so in between listening to your favorite stories, you can always have something new to explore. For listeners of the show, Dipsy is offering an extended 30-day free trial when you go to dipsystories.com/Sahara. That's 30 days of full access for free when you go to DIPSEA stories.com/Sahara, and you can find that link in the show notes.
So trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance, close your eyes and listen.
It's so insane how the wisdom of our ancestors find us. Like you're in Bali doing a yoga teacher training, and then it's like, let's bring in Mayan cacao from Guatemala. And it's like that plant and the wisdom of your ancestors found you restored your just connection with your lineage, which made you start to get more curious and go on this journey, going back to Guatemala, studying the roots there, and then doing all of this deep inner healing work. So I want to start with just your relationship with your dad, because I feel like that's like a really big part of this book and your story. I feel a lot of us, when we have a parent that harmed us, a parent that did hurtful actions, it can be really hard to forgive and see the good in them. How are you able to start doing that?
Ooh, that's such a good question. And it's been such a journey for me. So, and it keeps unfolding before me. I'm learning things, brand new things all of the time. And just recently, and like I've shared this with you, just recently, what was that, a month ago, I found his journals and I found out more about him, right? So it's like, it's wild and it's been such a process and a journey. But for me, it began with realizing that he was a writer, right? He liked to write. He was an avid reader. And I also like to write. That's already like a beautiful synchronicity and thing. I knew that he was into drugs, right? He had gotten into drugs. He was in gangs. He had been molested, that he had a really hard life, right? So I understood that he had this hardness to him, but I also was very curious to know him because of that, because he was a writer and all of the things that I liked as well. Like there were parts to him that I'm like, I can imagine that I'm like him in ways. My mom would always tell me, you have your father's sense of humor. Like, I don't think those things are funny at all. And I'd be like, wow, that's so cool, And I was just really curious. I think we're all really curious and want to have a connection with our parents. So we would write letters back and forth growing up from 13 till 18, actually. Then after he passed away, when I was 22, I found some of his writings. And in there, I saw that he was really gifted. He was really talented. And then I put those away. And then I actually had a dream about him maybe a week after he passed. And in the dream, he told me, "You saved me. You saved me." I was in some random room with him, like in his office, in his study, which he didn't have one of those. But it was so special. And I remember him holding me and hugging me and telling me, like, "You did it. Like, you saved me. I'm not going to kill myself. Like, I'm going to live." And we were crying and holding each other. And I woke up bawling my eyes out. And at that time, I didn't understand that what he meant. And it wasn't real to me. I didn't understand why he would even tease me, or like, it felt traumatic to even experience that, because it's like, it's not real, right? At that time. So I remember crying and feeling really traumatized by that. Like, that dream in itself is still really visceral. Like, it feels like I had the dream a couple days ago. Anyhow, like I said, I went into numbing after yoga, after finding Cacao. I'm wanting to learn more. I go into his old papers. I bring them out of nowhere. This is maybe even just a few years ago. And I'm going through his journal, and I find that he's writing about the universe and all of these beautiful things. And I share that on Instagram, actually. And then I learn, in between that, I learned that my father had abused my sister and abused other people, right? And so I learned more about him, which then made me want to put all of that away and kind of push him away. But at the same time, I knew that I had a relationship with him in his spiritual, right? I really do believe that our ancestors have another lens, a spiritual, they're coming to us from a different perspective, a spiritual perspective that isn't like them in human form. So I can understand, okay, in his human form, like, I do not condone those things. I'm also going to try to forgive them. It was really hard to find that forgiveness, but I also have a relationship with the spirit and his essence. However, I still pushed him away. I pushed those papers away. And then just a couple weeks ago, I brought the papers out again. And I find in this journal that he had been into spirituality, that he had gone to Peru with his best friend, and he had tried ayahuasca. I had no idea that he was into spirituality in that way. He had been going to ceremonies. I find his best friend's number. I call his best friend, and I learn even more about him, that he, had been helping a lot of men actually in Mendocino at men's gatherings. And he was a speaker and supported a lot of people. So he had all these like beautiful aspects as well. And that's the human experience, right? I learned another thing that's really beautiful, because I don't know a lot about my grandparents from that side, right? I know nothing about my grandfather from that side. But I learned in the papers that my grandmother was actually from Chiapas, Mexico. And she had been raised by her grandmother. Her parents had abandoned her. And her grandmother was incredibly superstitious and would hang her from the rafters and beat the devil out of her. And so my grandmother was this incredibly resilient woman who was so loving and so kind. And, had my father, tried her best, and just had such a big heart. And then here I am. So just like learning these little things about my father and my grandmother, it's just, uncovering more. Mind you, after I found those writings, the next day, my father's nickname is Crow, by the way. A crow starts to play with me, and I'm like walking Chai, by the way. And he's starting to play with us. And he's like flying above my head. I have a video of this. I even put it on a story. He's flying above my head, hitting my hat and like coming in front of me. And then I'll walk again and be like, hi, yes, I see you. Thank you. Like I can feel your essence. Thank you. Go back, go again. And then he comes and, just keeps walking with us.
The day before you came and stayed here, I've never had a crow came up to my balcony and was just staring to the inside of my apartment. He was like, I'm going to scope this place out, see if my Christine can stay over here. He was just like looking.
I love that.
Now we know who that was.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so cute.
It's really beautiful how you are able to, from a place of just compassion and non-judgment, hold his light and his shadow. I feel often the first part of the ancestral healing journey is to be honest of the ways that we feel hurt, the ways that we felt abandoned, the ways that we felt, and like writing a letter. And I'm sure you've done that. I'm curious any practices you have of like getting out like the rage and the disappointment and all that. So what did that first stage look like for you?
Honestly, a lot of bypassing in the beginning and going straight to the magic, straight to the light, right? With yoga, more so. And even with Cacao supports you to come into your heart and the inner child so that you can kind of reparent. And the practices that I learned supported me in really reparenting. I remember this one really potent practice. I was in Costa Rica actually, and there was this Guatemalan brother. We were just paired together. And he, in this practice, was playing the part of my father. He just happened to be Guatemalan. It was wild. And then the sister friend was my mother, right? And that practice was really incredible. It was them witnessing me from conception to the birth to me growing. I just bawled the entire time. And it was like a rewriting of my story.
How were they witnessing you? Like, what were you doing?
They're basically pretending. They're just looking at me. They're pretending to have me. They're like holding me at first, like I'm in the belly. Mm-hmm. So like I'm like, I guess, being hugged between them. Yeah, and then they're speaking on what it looks like. Like in the beginning, we're having you in this beautiful way. You're planned, like you're meant to be here. We want you here. It's so beautiful. There's a fireplace happening. It's crackling. I'm on this incredible, this beautiful bed. There's candles and fruit, and it's so orgasmic. And also the birth is orgasmic, and you're just brought in with so much joy and bliss. And we just love you. We're so proud of you. The word, hearing, I'm so proud of you, like makes me want to cry right now because that's what I wanted to hear from him, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was so special.
And how powerful the way that we can rewrite our experiences through that of recreating the birth that we deserved, but because of the human sides of them, they wanted that, but they were not able to provide that because of hurt and ego and societal structures and all the different things. So I love that practice of like witnessing two people recreate your birth in the way that you would want, and then witnessing that, and then that actually rewrites your memory. And it's like, that is actually spiritually how you were born.
Exactly. And how beautiful to have that experience. Like, yeah, and that's an invitation for everyone. Like maybe write it out and just use your imagination to tap into it. Imagination can make anything real and feel real in the body. So write it out and see it for yourself, what that can look like. Right. So then later on, my practice has been coming into like forgiveness and understanding that he was a human, having an experience, and he wasn't perfect by any means. But more recently, realizing that there's some gifts that he really passed down. And it's almost as if he passed the torch to me, right? Learning that he was into spirituality. I had no idea. Another thing is, and I didn't piece this together until later, but, he lived and died in Culver City. I moved to Culver City later that exact same year. Like the first place when I moved to LA was Culver City. So there's just all these little pieces. And when you put them together, it's so magical and it's beyond even words. But I think when you open yourself up to spirituality and this work, you start to see the synchronicities as like little winks from God and the ancestors,
It's like in the lineage, there's like a soul nudge that like there's like a dharma in the lineage, and it's like our grandparents can feel it, but they can only go so far. And I feel every grandparent has like a specific one. So like obviously your father's was like on a spiritual journey. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure his father or mother like similarly was on a spiritual journey, but like, his father lived and died in Guatemala and, could only go that far, though we don't really know about him. Yeah. Then your father actually took a huge leap in coming to the United States, and was on this journey, but then because of society, right? You're coming here. I don't know if he was undocumented. It's like, you don't,
yes,
he was. So it's like, you can't just apply for a job, you got to do what you can to get by. What are the things you can do to get by? Gangs, and it's like, that's what how our systems are. And they're benefiting off of that. That's why they don't want legalization paths, especially for people from Central America, but for people from Europe, no problem,
Yep.
So there's the collective karma as well. And so it's like he had this part in him that wanted to awaken and he was awakening, but then, the darkness around him, and I'm sure we know he was in an internal battle with it and he took it so far to Culver City.
Right.
And you start there. It's literally passing the torch. It's literally like, this is how far I'm going to take it on the ladder of consciousness. And now you get to start right here. And I'm going to be supporting you and watching through you. And you're never going to have to go through the struggles that I went through because I went through them and I cleared that karma so you can be here. And then you're going to go through your own battle and your own journey, which led to you writing a book on this healing, bringing it, going from, where you grew up, where we were talking about like the sexualization of Latina girls to like, you're such a stand and you inspire me of like the way you just don't wear makeup. You don't do your nails, like you dress in Indigenous clothing, and it inspires me because it's like, that's what true beauty is, it's to be our authentic and natural selves. And you went on your own journey of remembering that and taking the stand, and let's see like how far you go, and your children and all the people that you impact will stand upon your shoulders. And, and it's just so beautiful the way that we are giving life back to itself.
Mm-hmm. Chills.
Full chills. Okay, so let's start also with different practices we can do for remembering roots that you talk about in the book.
There's so many. Connecting with your body. I mean, we start the first chapter with the body, knowing how important it is, right? When we talk about remembering your roots, it's rooting into your being, into your body, so that you can remember your interconnection with all things, with your soul, with your spirit, with the ancestors, with the elementals before them, with God, with the earth. So coming into the body, right? It's as simple as setting the intention to come into your heart, into your breath, right? In this moment, feeling your skin, right? Coming into alignment with body, mind, and spirit. You can work with different aspects, different things, practices. I love the support of ceremonial cacao and supporting that alignment, knowing that that's an incredible ancestral plant ally that is literally here with an intelligence to support you in that, in remembering your roots, remembering your ancestors and your interconnectedness, connecting with your inner child through visualization.
Yeah, let's talk about inner child because that's huge. That's something we really bond on. So let's say someone's like, I don't even know what I like to do as a child. Like, I can't even remember. I just remember I had a bad childhood. Like, how can they start connecting with what they loved?
Feel into things that you like now, because you probably, the things that you liked as a kid, you're probably going to like now, right? So start to feel into the things that you like, the music that you like what makes you light up, what excites you. If there isn't music, what is maybe a movie that really did it for you, right? Go watch a Disney movie that you used to love, a Pocahontas.
We were bonding over Dumbo.
Whatever it may be that just kind of puts you into that state of remembering your inner child there. Cacao is another thing that can do that for you, right? I feel like going into nature can remind you of that as well, and being held and knowing that you belong as well to so much more than just your relatives or your society. But yeah, music, dance, allowing yourself to feel good with the music and let yourself flow and connect with the inner child, and invite them to play, invite them to show up. You can visualize them, like close your eyes maybe before going into the practice and see your little girl, little boy, your little being there, and witness them and allow them to show up in your expression. So if you put on a song that you love, allow them to dance however they want to dance and express themselves. And maybe that's like doing cartwheels or something, or rolling around on the floor, but just like go and play and have some fun, or eat some ice cream. It can be really simple things. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like dancing is a huge way that we do it, of just like our morning practice recently is we just like play a song and we just dance. And even at the beginning, it's like we've both been like waking up and working, and we're like, let's play the song. And like one song shifts the entire mood. Then we went to the Dharma Coaching Institute students, because you're in Dharma Coaching Institute, we danced, and the ripple effect it had on them. And it's so like, fun. All it takes is like the permission slip of one person to be like, hey, we don't have to be serious adults all the time. Like we actually, our inner children are with us. They're experiencing life through us right now.
Playfulness is so needed and so important. Yes.
This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Okay, let's be real. How many times have you gone on social media and you saw a picture of someone at a waterfall, or their boyfriend surprised them with all these gorgeous balloons on their birthday, or they made 7 figures in their lunch, or something huge. And then you started thinking, I'm behind. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I'm not living my best life. And started comparing yourself to them. Well, the truth is, social media is a highlight reel. We don't all post our crappy moments on there, and we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But we're constantly comparing ourselves to these picture-perfect moments. And this is why therapy is really helpful. It helps us just put things back into perspective, into realizing that life is the mundane. It's the in-between moments, and it's the process and journey of getting there, and to be more clear on what your best life looks like, because it might not look like the best life of that other person. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, I highly recommend giving BetterHelp a try. So it's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Sahara to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Sahara, and you can find that link in the show notes. Because you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to make a quick assumption about you. Your friends come to you for advice. Whenever you're at a party, someone corners you at the side of the snack table and starts telling you all of their childhood traumas. And you actually love diving deep into spiritual topics, and you have a really good way of communicating with people. So the best way to actually create a career doing this is through coaching. But I know a lot of people, they're like, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know what type of coach I would be. So I've created a quick, easy quiz to discover your unique coaching style. So there are 3 categories: the intuitive, transformational, or empathetic coach. So the intuitive one really works with your intuition. You're able to receive downloads. You just have insights about people. The transformational one has more of that fire energy. You love to keep it real and help people go through the deepest phoenix rising from the ashes moments in their lives. And the empathetic coach really loves to listen, hold space. They're very grounded, nurturing. So if you're curious which type you are, you can try my free quiz at quiz.highestselfinstitute.com. Again, that's quiz.highestselfinstitute.com, which is my school that certifies spiritual life coaches. And you can find that link in the show notes. I'm super excited to see what type of coach you are, because I'm gonna hire you one day. So trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance, close your eyes and listen. Especially with stuff like ancestral healing, I find it can be the heaviest.
Yep.
the heaviest, like especially going into your childhood, like you want to cry, you go right there, and you want to laugh, you go right there. And it's like, that's life. Like the thing that hurts the most is also the thing that brings the most like love and joy. And I feel like as adults, we get so serious that we just cut ourselves off from all of it, of like, I don't want to feel the pain that my child felt, so I'm also not going to feel the joy. And it's like they're tandem, they're side by side, and like that's the beauty of children. They're like laughing, and then they'll have a tantrum, and they'll go back to laughing, and they're not so scared of their emotions the way that we become later in life, where we're like afraid of feeling. Like the reason why I didn't want to sit with medicine for so many years was I was afraid of what I would feel. I was afraid of losing control. I was afraid, what if it shows me something scary? What if I cry a lot? What if I this? And it's like, and what if? And then guess what? I'll cry and I'll feel it, and I'll always become brighter on the other side.
The depth that you can go right into that grief is the level that you can go into that gratitude, into the bliss. So we're meant to feel it all, and we can only heal if we feel as well, right? So, and all of it is just, it's really beautiful. And I think when you hold onto the thread of gratitude, which is also a big part of the book, we can hold onto that thread of gratitude for everything that you experience through all of the challenges and everything, just holding on, right, to the thread of like, can I see the light in this? Even in this, can this support me in my evolution, in my growth, in my expansion? If you can hold onto the thread of gratitude, it can really support you through all of life.
And I feel like people think, oh, like gratitude is like, it's like spiritual bypassing and stuff. But it's like, it's actually not only ancient, it's also scientific.
Yeah, exactly. It is the staple of every Indigenous culture. Gratitude is essential in all cultures. It's being in reciprocity for all things. It's being in reverence for life, allowing you to honor life, to honor this experience that we have. And it's also like the highest vibration. It's a giving and receiving of love. It's like the highest state and frequency that you can be in when you're in gratitude. And it's not just about writing in your journal and then putting that away. It's like, how can we embody gratitude? How can we live in a state of gratitude? And it's through the practice and welcoming it to be in your body as an experience. Like, how can we be the expression of gratitude? How can we start to feel it and let it live through us? I like to welcome people to like feel how grateful you feel for being alive. Feel gratitude for the seat that you're sitting on. Feel gratitude for this body that we have. Feel grateful for these arms and these hands, for this breath, right? Feel gratitude for the little things and the big things, for the things that are maybe not even here in the physical, but the things that we want to feel into in the future so that we can make that real, right? We start to magnetize those things to us when we can feel into them already. We can make them real with our imagination. So yeah, gratitude is like, it's beautiful. It's life.
And it just shifts our mind. Like our mind just has such a negativity bias when left unchecked that we can go into all the things. And then even when we've manifested the things that we want, then we just go into the next and the next. And it's like in life, you're never going to have everything you want all at the same time. Like that. It's never existed ever. So just give up on that, However, we're already living a lot of the things that we're calling in. This time last year, I was staying with different people, Airbnbs on my journey, and now I have a home. I'm like, every single day, I'm like, I have my own bed. Wow. This time last year, I did not know when or how that would ever happen. And now I have a bed, and that period of uncertainty that I was in, I'm out of. I'm in another chapter. And then there's other things I'm uncertain about,
Exactly.
But it's not around my home anymore. Now it's about my relationships. And it's like, and that's in life, but my business is good. Whereas there was a period of time that my relationship was great, but my business was not, and it's like, it's always a spiral, and we so focus on like, but I don't have that one thing. I don't have that one thing. But then like that quest of obsessing over that one thing makes you lose the other. The quest of obsessing over, I got to get further in my career might make you lose your friendships. And then you might be like, I have no friends, because I didn't value the friendships. And then, so it's like, it's always a balance. And that's what I love about Indigenous wisdom as well. Can you share a little bit about like Toltec and Mayan wisdom and some of the tenets of that?
Yeah, I'd love to share a little bit about Mexica history. I've just been diving deeper into Mexica history, which are the descendants of the Tolteca people, who are descendants of the Olmeca people, which Mayans were around during the Tolteca times, Mexica times. So they're also descendants of the Olmecas. That's like our matriarchal, right, mother civilization. The Mexicas had beautiful cultural aspects to them. They were incredibly civilized, beautiful, mathematicians, inventors, astrologers, scientists. They were biophilic, which means that they encouraged life. They never invented anything that would, promote death or infringe upon life or Mother Earth.
Wow.
They never invented another weapon, yet they invented the calculator. Since prehistoric times, let me say. They never invented another weapon since those times, right? They obviously need some weapons to do things. But they invented the calculator. They invented corn, the first government, the oldest and first government democracy. They invented the first education system. They had a beautiful calendar that supported them in life. And they were incredibly spiritual. That was a big part of their culture, was spirituality. Their ceremonies were steeped in spirituality and interconnectedness and reciprocity and gratitude. They had something called the calpelis, which were social organizations that would bring people together, that would cultivate unity and diversity. They would have ceremonies, they would educate the people, they would have gatherings and even take care of the sick. So, that's really, really special to me because I do something called the revival and I bring people together and it's literally unity in diversity, bringing all these people from different backgrounds together to share their stories. And I didn't know there was a word for that. And I'm like, I'm literally doing this thing that my, for sure, ancestor was one of the capelis, So that's super special, super beautiful. One of the common threads, one of the ancestral plants that the Mexica and also the Mayan people worked with was cacao once again. Cacao was used for everything between life and death, used ceremonially, used for healing. It was even used as currency for the Maya people, which was beautiful because then that, they avoided, hoarding and they avoided just keeping their wealth for themselves because cacao, right, spoils within 2 years. And for the Mexica people, it was actually bartering. They didn't have a currency. They were it was a barter system. Same thing with owning property. They didn't own property. It was bartering. So it was beautiful. It prevented greed and prevented the hoarding aspects that we see in our culture, right? So yeah, so many beautiful things. There's so much wisdom to learn and to feel when we connect with the ancient ancestors, right? This is like pre-colonization. There's so much beauty, so much wisdom, and we don't know about that. And I'm learning about it every day. I'm continuing to grow and learn, and it's really beautiful and profound. And I think it's really important to share because a lot of people don't know this history. It's been taken away. And I know in the culture, what I've seen in our society is a sense of like seeing the Maya people, or Aztecas, they like to call them, but we call ourselves Mexica, and they've always been called Mexica people. They were seen as barbaric, that's the standard look. There was a film that was out back in the day, Apocalypto, that really set that precedent. And yeah, so I love rewriting the story. I love sharing about ancient Maya culture and the Mexica culture, and I write about it more in the book. You could dive into it there for sure.
I feel like connecting to the ancient ways prior to, Abrahamic organized religions, all of these indigenous cultures had such similar downloads. Like when you were sharing everything about the tenets of this indigenous wisdom, it reminded me of Zoroastrian culture, which is the ancient Persian wisdom prior to Islam. That was connected to earth, connected to the fire element. We made altars. The tenets were see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. We gave back. It was like, now we say these words like pagan, but like pagan is actually just the European form of it, which they came to the same realizations in their own way. And so it's crazy how all of these civilizations, completely disconnected, were channeling the same things: gratitude, love, respect, working with earth, working with cycles, working with seasons, reciprocity, right relations. And then because of, I would say major religions, probably the main thing, which brought patriarchy, which brought colonialism, which brought capitalism, agricultural revolution, like the wars that came with that. And I think vibrationally, we did enter into just like a darker consciousness in humanity. I think it was a lighter consciousness. I think we're moving back into that. And that's why people like you and I and the people listening to this, we're feeling it. We're feeling these ancient ways because we're like ancient souls, like brought back.
Yeah.
I don't know in this lifetime we'll go back to like the Machu Picchu time, but
and we don't want to. We don't want to, right?
Yeah.
We want to like learn from them, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to romanticize these ancient cultures because they weren't perfect either. But we get to know all sides, and the story that's been told is usually the negative for brown folk, for people from
the Americas. They did human sacrifices.
That's all we hear.
Exactly.
Right. And so, and there's intention behind all of that, and I'm not going to even go into that, but we get to learn about all sides, and we get to learn the wisdom so that we can carry that forward. No matter what, we're going to have a relationship with our ancestors. So it's whether or not we're going to carry a legacy forward of their wisdom, their beauty, their magic, or we're going to carry their legacy of their traumas and their wounds, right? So we get to connect with them, learn from them, carry forward the beauty.
Yeah, like even when you were describing these cultures, it made me so sad to feel the consciousness of violence and how that has massively just infiltrated, especially, all over the world. Well, specifically because I was raised by Guatemalan, like you know, the woman who lived with us, took care of me since I was young was Guatemalan. That's why Christine and I are like, in my soul, I'm Guatemalan y hablo español también, vale? But hearing from the time I was a child, just the amount of war, of violence, and that's not indigenous to the ways of the land. That was brought by colonialism, and being in Peru and hearing about the ways that if there was an indigenous person who was even like created a fire, they would kill them. They would crucify them.
Yeah.
Can you speak? Because I didn't realize the extent of this, and I'm like the bravery that these indigenous people, because most of them had to flee up to the tops of the mountains just to survive, let alone keep ceremony like despacho and of course even plant medicine. Wow, to keep these systems intact and share them. And so many of them are finally coming down from the mountains because they're like, it's time for the world to experience this because these plants are needed to awaken humanity. I'm like, these people literally have died for thousands of years, had to hide their livelihoods to preserve these rituals, these ceremonies, these plants for it to heal us. Like they are angels of our times.
And that's why it's such a sacred responsibility for us to carry forward the wisdom, right? And there are wisdom keepers all over these beautiful places in Mesoamerica. And yes, they're coming out, but also you can visit those lands and connect with them. And they want to share, and it's essential to learn from them. It is so essential to learn from them. And also we can connect with that wisdom by connecting with ourselves and knowing that the ancestors live through us. So it's not just learning from outside of ourselves, but also going like within and really feeling that that's within you, and you can activate that within yourself too. I think is super important. I don't remember the question you asked, but I'm like, yes. Oh, I wanted to share. You were saying, yes, the Maya people, this was maybe just a couple of years ago, maybe 3, where I found out that a Mayan Ashki, a spiritual guide, he was burned at the stake for practicing his practices, for being, a shaman in the community. Somebody had come to him sick and they passed away and they blamed it on him. This was only a few years ago. This is, it's crazy. And
we talk about the witch trials, it's still happening.
Exactly. And
it's it's the medicine person, it's the healer, it's the shaman, it's the mystic, it's people who are just connected to earth and allowing earth to heal you. They're not saying I'm healing you, they're letting earth heal you, but that's so against the system that's pharmaceutical, that's like, we know the answer and you don't, that they're trying to suppress it.
Yeah, exactly. And even within a lot of people, they'll try to suppress going into that knowledge, into the wisdom and traditions of their culture, right? There's a lot of integrated colonization within people and a lot of fear or just this desire to not even go there, right? It's so much easier to go into somebody else's spirituality. Like, so it was so easy for me to go into yoga and not even think twice, right? But I definitely thought about it when I was going more into cacao. It would come up and I'd have to look at it like, why is all this stuff coming up around it? And why do I feel like also the unworthy piece are not good enough? Like, who am I to do this, right? The imposter syndrome comes up a lot because we get to work through that because our ancestors were not able to continue those beautiful ways. They lost, right, their traditions and their beautiful wisdom. So
yeah, my friend who was there, she in the Sacred Valley, she was sitting with her friend and they made this beautiful flower altar with roses. And this Indigenous boy saw them. He's like, brujas, brujas, like witches, an Indigenous boy. But that's what he was taught. He was taught to see someone sitting with an altar. She's an evil witch. Stay away. And that's the internalized racism and colonialism that they want these children to be afraid of the own magic that they have within themselves.
Oh, yeah. In Guatemala, you have evangelicals who they are just so hardcore. You know, it's also based from Catholicism. And yeah, they are not okay with the fire ceremony. With the only thing that they continue is to wear their traditional clothing, and they still speak the Mayan dialect. So it's wild to even see that they're continuing some of the things, but they will not continue working with, you know, their gods, their deities, their practices. Definitely not the cacao in that way in ceremony.
It's crazy. And this is around the world. I remember I was in Fiji and I really wanted to deeply connect with the Fijian spiritual and cultural roots. And I was asking the people, what was it like? He was like, oh, we were barbaric. But thank God they came and they brought us Christianity and we found our way. That's what they told them. We had to save you because you were so barbaric. You guys were killing and eating each other. They put this storyline that all Fijians were cannibals. And I'm sure you've heard this before. It's, I don't know, even my mom said in Iran, she would hear, never go to Fiji because they're going to eat you. So it's like they take maybe one thing that ever happened and distorted it. Like what actually happened, there was like a king that was fighting another king and
to
like
delegitimize.
Yeah. And like in like this one specific kind of crazy person like fought this other king and then I guess like ate a part of him as his like after he killed him. So that happened. But imagine if we all looked at what one of our presidents did and said, all Americans are that. Like, no, they are not. That guy was full of ego and greed to have done an act like that. But now to tell every Fijian for thousands of years, you were all cannibals until us white Christian saviors came and fixed you, is the ultimate self-loathing. You know, but I don't know what's happening right now in Fiji. I'm sure there's a movement of it. I know in Latin America and Peru, there's a huge movement of coming back to the indigenous ways. I know in Peru and Bolivia, indigenous people are being put into positions of power. I know in the Amazon right now, there's a very big conflict because the Brazilian president is ruthless and burning down the Amazon and killing indigenous people. So indigenous people are rising and coming out of the Amazon to come together, like tribes coming together and saying, no, we will not have this. And people coming to their support and around the world, like in Iran, where my family's from, a lot of us Iranians are choosing to use the words prior to Arab because we were colonized by Arabs. That's where the alphabet, Islam, all these things come from. That's not our indigenous roots. We're actually, Persian is not Arab. It's different. You know, sort of like Spanish is not, but we even say Latino. It's not Latin. It's not. We say Latin American. It's not Latin. Latin is in Europe. You know, it's the same thing. We kind of group all Middle Eastern people. You're all Muslims. Actually, Persians, we never said salam. It was Durud Barishoma. We never had names like Muhammad and Ali. My own dad's name is Mahmoud. Like we all have Muslim names. But actually what our names were before were Cyrus, Cyrus, you know, like Babak, like all these different names. So a lot of Persians are going back and like, yes, colonization happened and, you know, but let's go back to who we were for thousands of years before that. And I feel like collectively, even in Stonehenge, you know, European people going back to their pagan and historic roots. Yes, in Africa and Zimbabwe, I was seeing it happening of, hey, like we might have been colonized and forced into Christianity, but we were not Christian before. We had the Ashanti kingdom and, you know, the Ethiopian kingdoms and all these different things. So I feel like there's just this collective renaissance of all of our indigenous roots and seeing all of ourselves as indigenous to earth, prior to this like mass grouping of people. And like, especially on the medicine, it showed me how these religions like want to take over, you know? And like, again, I can say this because I grew up like a Muslim, but seeing the way like that in Islam, it's almost like you're kind of told to convert other people. Like that is actually part of it. And it's very easy to convert into Islam. It's the fastest growing religion. And it's like, why would I think that you converting to my religion is going to save you or is better from you? Like that is such, you know, and I understand the roots of like where it came from back in the day, but to think that like, you know, yesterday I was on the street going to the Apple store and it's like all these like, I don't know, Jehovah's Witness or something. And they're like giving me all these flyers. Jesus is going to save you. Jesus is going to save you. I'm like, I'm good, honey. You know, and it's like, it's that consciousness. I think we can all see past it. And I feel like it's the end of it. And like, let's connect to our own intuition, earth, and guidance.
Yes. And we are all Indigenous, right? And if we know that, right, we can't be controlled and told we're something else and placed into this box. When you know you're Indigenous, you know you have those roots that are connected, and our ancient ancestors were once living so happy and healthy, you know, and in harmony, living just in such a beautiful way in reciprocity and gratitude. We can take those beautiful lessons and continue them forward, move them forward. And
I think learning from other cultures, you know, we've had conversations like this, but I feel like people are so afraid of learning of other cultures because of this like call out online culture, like you're cultural appropriating, you're cultural appropriating. And I've done a podcast on this before with my friend Excel, who's a Puerto Rican Taino shaman. And we were talking about how while there is totally such thing as cultural appropriation, we definitely see it happening. Like we were talking about how people like do like ayahuasca ceremonies. It's like everyone's white. No one has ever studied with an Indigenous. There's no right relations. Like there is cultural appropriation happening and that's real. And we need to be mindful of it. However, me learning from you and your Indigenous roots or me buying local clothes from the local artisan that maybe this made her entire week that I bought this from her. And also that I'm sharing it with other people to put a different beauty standard out there is actually raising these communities. But that's what this agenda wants us to feel, that white is right. If we all dress white, if we all wear fucking Abercrombie and Fitch, if we all straighten our hair, you're not going to offend anyone. So everyone, let's do that. But God forbid I wear something of another culture. Oh no, you're cultural appropriating. Okay, so if I wear some Shein, am I good? It was literally made by slaves. But am I good there?
wearing plastic.
If I'm wearing microplastics with lead in it, am I good there? You know, and I would love for you. I would love to dress you in Persian clothing. Make you into a little Persian doll. I would love that because I want to share my culture, and it's showing you wearing this every day has shown me the beauty of your culture. And I'm like, oh, I love that. And I can't say this is my culture. I can't say that, you know, but I can enjoy it and appreciate it and learn from it. And I feel like we are so like on the fence of like, well, I can't learn that because I'm not from there. And again, that's the divide and conquer thing. And we see that happen too, especially in like brown and black cultures, that we're fighting against each other, you know, instead of looking at the system that's making us fight.
It's all about the intention. So you can appreciate versus appropriate by setting the intention and doing it in a right relation and taking care of the people and uplifting the culture rather than taking and extracting. So
exactly. And I think that's also really important. Let's talk about with herbs and plants.
Yeah.
How can people, because I know you have a cacao company, and how can people buy cacao, herbs, even work with medicine in a way that's in right relation and not extractive?
Yeah. So, you know, with getting cacao, that's why I source my own cacao. Somalux cacao is sourced by the Mayan Women's Collective, and it's better than fair trade. And then I also source from Mexico, which is a small family farm. So getting and sourcing from the right places, and there are many different ceremonial cacaos, but knowing that they're made ceremonially means they're made with intention. They're made in ceremony. They're made with blessings, and you're taking care of the people, and they're also making it to take care of you and your heart, knowing it's like heart medicine, right? So sourcing from the right place, as well with herbs and things. You don't want to just buy, you know, your tea bags from the grocery store. You know, you want to source your herbs maybe from a co-op if that's all you have, or the local apothecary, and find the herbs that are right for you to work with as well, knowing that you also have an ancestral plant that you can work with. So learn from your ancestors, you know, do the research to find like what type of plants were your ancestors working with, And cacao is one of those plants that is for sure meant for everyone. That's why we see chocolate. But when you eat chocolate and you're eating chocolate from the grocery store, right, it's highly processed. It strips away the fat, the living enzymes, and you're just left with the flavor of chocolate. And there's tons of sugar.
It's not even cacao.
It's not even cacao. It's just a little bit of the cocoa is the flavor, right? So it smells like it and it tastes a little bit like it. But really, cacao is naturally bitter. So I can make a cacao drink taste like chocolate, right? But you can't make the chocolate feel like cacao. I've never said that, but that's exactly what it is. And cacao, when you have it in its purest form, it's heart medicine. It's so expansive. It's like this rooting effect, this grounding effect, also upliftment at the same time. It's a spiritual aid, right? As well as like this superfood with all of these beautiful properties that make you feel really good on a physical level, but on a deeper level, it's so supportive with opening your heart. But yeah, also,
and it's such a beautiful way to connect with friends because we always have cacao ceremonies with our friends, and her cacao is amazing. We'll link it below. But it just allows, like, when it's in groups of women, like we can all get very chatty and in our heads and like, even like talking about all of our problems. But then it's like, let's all gather, like we, put out a beautiful mat like this and we sit and, you guide us through a meditation and we sit with the warm cacao in our hands. So can you share, like, how can someone do an at-home cacao ceremony?
Yes. So making your cacao already in ceremony, like setting the space, playing beautiful music, creating that beautiful ritual already, chopping it, just intentionally being really present with the process. And then when you have that cup in your hand, setting an intention and a prayer with yourself, giving yourself the time to be present with the process and the experience, and set your intention to feel whatever you're wanting to feel in the space. You can also help it with like your creations, right? It's so supportive in creativity. I wrote my first book on it, A Child of Magic, because it supported me connecting with my inner child. So yeah, allow yourself to play with it and allow your inner child to come out in that space. Yeah, and I have a free guide also on my website, so y'all can dive into that.
It's just such a great mindfulness practice because I feel like when I'm eating a chocolate bar, I'm like scarfing it down my face. You're like, give me all of it in my mouth. Whereas with the cacao, you can't because it's so rich. And it's like you're using your two hands. And I'm like, that's how we were meant. It's like even in Japan, you see people in all these cultures, two hands, because it's mindfulness. Whereas we're like even in Europe, there's no concept of a coffee to go. Whereas in America, it's like almost weird to have it there. Everything is to go. We're like giant venti cup of coffee, but you're not even being present for a sip of it. Mm-hmm. And you just consumed all this, plus a lot of them have tons of sugar in it. Mm-hmm. So you're really on a sugar high and caffeine high. And you're scarfing it down and it's never enough. And then you need another one because you're not mindful, where it's just anything you have in life. Food, sex, conversation. If you're mindful with it, just a little is enough.
And feel gratitude for it.
Feel gratitude for it. Feel the sensation of it in your mouth. I don't know what we're talking about right now. And just really be like mindful with the experience. And I loved that with the cacao because it was like, I could like feel it go down my throat. And I've sat in some cacao ceremonies, it's like hours long. And then you're chanting and you're singing together. And it's so beautiful. And guys, it's literally cacao. It's not a psychoactive in any way, but you feel different.
100%. Yeah. There's so many beautiful properties within that support that feeling of like euphoria. You have anandamide, which is the bliss molecule. Theobromine gently energizes. Then you have magnesium that relaxes you and feeds your brain, which we're super deficient in the Western world, in magnesium. It's filled with antioxidants. It's a powerhouse. It's even more than like blueberries. It's vitamins and nutrients. It has all these beautiful things that support that.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And it actually reminds me of similar frequency of saffron. Saffron's very big in Persian culture, but it enhances dopamine in your brain. So it boosts mood. It brings like arousal in your body. It warms your body, very similar properties. Yep. So it's interesting how in different parts of the world, different herbs and plants grew for similar things. There's also mucuna, which is more in Central America, which is, the dopamine bean, they call it. So when we connect to what Earth is naturally providing for us, and that's what I miss, of other countries. You go to a fruit market there. The fruits are so sweet. The vegetables, like a tomato's a tomato. Whereas here it's like bland.
It's so bland.
And I feel like that's why we need so much of it, because it doesn't have as much, because it's bland, doesn't mean it doesn't have enough nutrients either and flavor. So we're needing more and more, but it's like plastic and we're never satiated. Whereas in Peru and many parts of the world, you have a little bit of something so sweet. It's so rich.
So flavorful.
Yeah.
All the fruits, all the vegetables. Like
growing our own food needs to happen.
Yes. When are we going to get that land?
New life in New Hampshire. Exactly. We decided we're moving to New Hampshire, guys. Yeah. Where dreams come true.
We said it here, so it's happening.
We said it here first. We'll be growing our own food.
Yes.
Living with the ladies and the animals.
In chat, yeah.
You're welcome to join us. Okay, well, where can people get your new book, Remember Your Roots, your cacao, and just learn from you further?
Ooh, can I read a little excerpt before?
Yes.
I would love to just read a tiny little one before we go. It's really sweet, just the end of the intro. So it says, remembering your roots is the starting point for this transformative journey. As we root and rise together, we not only empower ourselves, but also create a ripple effect that reaches those around us. This collective rooting and rising amplifies the gratitude you can give and receive, building a life based on thankfulness and reciprocity. By acknowledging where you come from and recognizing the power of your interconnectedness, you pave the way for a more grateful, balanced, and empathetic society. It all starts with remembering your roots and choosing to rise in gratitude. This is how you will bear rich fruit for yourself, your loved ones, and all those who will come after you. And we are like the trees, right? So when we root down into the earth and we root down, knowing all parts of ourselves interconnected, like the roots of the tree, they're rooted and they're interconnected to the mycelium and all of the ecosystems around them, then they can rise up to the heavens, right? Then they can, and we can rise up into our authenticity and into our light and expression. So yeah, you can find me at IamChristineOlivia.com or on Instagram, ChristineOlivia_ and Christine is ChristineOlivia.
And she offers her Revival, which is an incredible forum that brings together many different Indigenous leaders, speakers, teachers, mystics, dancers from all around the world. So we'll link that below so you can join her next one. And she also offers coaching. So we'll share all of that. Thank you so much, Christine, for being on.
Thank you, sis. I love you.
Love you.
Thanks, everyone.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. This was one that I feel will just reawaken such a remembrance. So I highly recommend sharing it if you have a friend that maybe has been contemplating some topics about their ancestry and their culture and reconnecting with earth and, connecting with their inner medicine woman, their inner wise woman. This is definitely the episode to share with them, have a conversation, share it on your Instagram story, be like, hey, I love this episode. Like, listen to it. Let's talk about it. Like, this is the way that we can have deeper friendships, by being the person to say, hey, I'm feeling this thing. Listen to this. Let's dive deeper and, have your own cacao ceremonies with your friends. Like, what a deeper way to connect, bringing more ritual and intention. So share this episode and please leave a review for it. Share with me what other topics you would love for me to dive into on the podcast. And as a free gift, I will send you my womb meditation. So all you got to do is leave a review over on the podcast app, take a screenshot and email it over to me at Sahara@IamSaharaRose.com. You can find that email and all of the links mentioned today in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.
Trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance. Close your eyes and listen. Swing to let go, swing to let go, swing to let go. So trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance. Close your eyes.